Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gautam Paul, and I'm the Group Sales Director of PR Newswire India, based in Mumbai. So our discussion tonight is how to make your content work harder for you. We have here some very incredibly experienced and authoritative professionals. But how many corporates, how many PR agencies, how many professionals are actually looking at the strategy behind the decision? What is the purpose of that content? What are they trying to achieve?
So you have to see content as almost like an arrow that you're leaving, and what distribution channels in which you want to leave that content, and how do you revitalize that content and continuously keep building on that as a vision, like a career. So I think so content distribution works internally as corporate messages and corporate communications, and externally to customers and suppliers. So if people have not got their content nailed right at the promise that they are making to the customer, or the point where they want to take the company, I think so it just gets lost.
What happens if you wanted to get hold of them and then billions of users of travel and your services and all the other different kind of influencers you need? How do you then take the same content and make it workable to everybody else?
Awesome. So when you're creating this content, basically what you're really wanting to do is to strategically mix this, and also mix the content type in which you basically choose that, and then choose which messages go on what type of channels, right? Taking content apart from how it exists to make it consumable in different forms for different people is, while keeping the message and strategy same, is that's how we would do.
Should not confuse message and strategy with content, because I think content comes after message and strategy.
But don't you think that companies will probably spend a disproportionate amount of time firefighting from the first bit of content they're sending out that's not getting the right reaction or is getting bad feedback?
But what are your thoughts in terms of trying to utilize, what's the strategy behind that kind of content angle?
What I believe are the three core principles of communication, marketing or conversation, whatever it is. You have a story to tell. You have a way to tell that story, and you link it to the pulse of the audience that you're telling the story to. I think it came out in your charts as well.
Creating good content is also about having the feelers of what you think your potential audiences are engaged in.
One of the things that cuts across geography, language, in terms of consumer behavior, how we consume content. Think about each one of you in your lives. There are really three things that you need to focus on. So entertain me, educate me, or make my life easier.
So I think I'd just like to add that one element to what Nikhil is saying, and coming back to viral, that would be one idea of actually doing things that could go viral.
So basically we defined viral as something which is unique and I look cool when I forward it. That's the content which goes viral, right? So if you can define your content as unique and I will look cool when I forward it, that's what becomes viral.
How do you kind of authenticate yourselves and also make it resonate whilst also all the people you're putting off at the same time as you're enhancing or engaging some people, you're losing others? How do you clear your way, your brand, through all of that? Myriad of stuff.
You can only succeed in any specific thing if you have a strategy for it. I think so. Most content which is generated does not have any strategy to it.
Just how do I get across my content with limited budgets? What medium do I employ? How do I really reach out?
But one of the oldest tricks in the book is actually to use data that out of the usage usage patterns of whatever your service is, and generate a insight which then becomes newsworthy or shareable, because then you're using information that you have. Hopefully that's not going to give away competitive intelligence.
Engaging content is almost like a product which is targeted to somebody who will appreciate it, right, as a benefit, right? So what is your data talking, right? What are the behaviors you're seeing? And beyond, and with those behaviors, right, are you able to isolate to people who you start showing those behavior types and see how they react to that. Content is not just about news. Content can be your product strategy, right? On how many more minutes or seconds you want to keep this guy on your website, right? A lot of that is really going to flow from your data, from how do you tag along with your existing content, new content, which people think is about emailing a newsletter. It's really not about saying, it's the closest delta that you can tag along, which is most relevant, right?
What should be the shelf life of any content?
I think the content shelf life is a function of how in the vogue will you marry things that you believe are valuable, and also there may be other user sets in other markets, right, where that content may be more valuable.
What about brevity of content? Can we have anything which is crisp and descriptive when it comes to content?
See, the only
the
only thing that sticks is the amount the human mind can recall again. The rest of it is really fluff. So you can do a page and a half of press release, apart from the regulatory requirements that are there, but people will really remember the opening paragraph and the headline, and a little bit of this and that through the rest. The only thing people will remember, and if you have
It's a benefit
something
takeaway
in the
from
quote,
that.
which doesn't sound like a parrot spouting the same thing over and over again, with all the buzzwords the companies decided to use at that point in time.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful, Aegis. Thank you.
Nikhil, thank you so much for being on the panel this evening.
Absolutely a pleasure.
Well, I suppose what I'd like to know is, did you think the discussion this evening was useful, and did you enjoy it?
Yes, in fact, I was just talking to your CEO, Nathan, and I was telling him that PR Newswire is in a very unique position to bring together practitioners within the industry, because you all actually are in touch with so many of the agencies and the corporate communication folks, and you provide a nice neutral platform for the industry to come together and share ideas, share thoughts, and I was really encouraging him that we should try and do more of these kind of sessions, and I'm very keen to see what feedback your audience gives as to what really worked, what didn't, and so absolutely yes, it was a enjoyable session.
You preempted my next question, which was, do you think we should do more of these? Do you think there are other topics that we should be discussing?
Well, the favorite topic of the Indian PR industry is talent, and how do we grow it, improve it, build it. So that's a definite no-brainer. If that's something that could be one of the topics, I would definitely love to hear more on that subject.
So Nainan, thank you so much for coming along and joining us in Bangalore this evening. It's lovely to have you here. I suppose I wanted to know, did you find tonight's discussion interesting and useful? What are your thoughts?
So enormously interesting. I think it sort of speaks to the opportunity of this industry at large in India and all these different use cases, I think, that were evidenced by, I think, the great questions that came from the audience and from the panelists. Questions around, obviously, applicability to B2B, this very unsexy, boring state industry, and the role that content can play with respect to that. Questions around personalization. So for me, all indicative of the rapid pace of the maturing of the business in India, which I think is tremendously exciting. So.
Tonight was all about how to make your content work harder for you. That's obviously something that we're, I suppose, almost experts at PR News, or something that we aim to help all our clients with. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think content really, and high quality content, it almost needs to be pointed out and reinforced and said that I think high quality content really has the ability to educate, to influence, to create advocacy, and really help companies, enterprises, governments, nonprofits, I think, define themselves in reputational terms and brand terms, and equally as importantly, in terms of what they do and the services they provide to meet their customers' expectations. And I think really what we started to see is almost a renaissance in terms of companies, entities like ourselves, and equally the audience, not just journalists, but equally people who are making decisions about buying products and services, understanding that content has an essential role to play in terms of helping articulate why somebody makes a decision to buy a particular product, put their loyalty against a particular company or an entity, and why they say yes. And content provides, I think, a very rich, multifaceted way of being able to provide answers to that essential question. So extremely exciting to see, I think, that discussion and debate playing out today on stage.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Nina.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.